Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about ethical marketing. Nobody likes to be sold to. Nobody likes to feel like they are being manipulated. Nobody likes to be, well, and maybe there are some people, some unpleasant people who like to be a manipulator, but a I would say maybe relatively common concern as people are thinking about transitioning into copywriting is whether advertising and marketing is synonymous with manipulation.
I'm offended almost as you say that. I'm like, does that make us manipulators, you and I? Oh, no.
Well, I mean, spoiler alert, I think we're probably guess what it is. No, we're going to dig into exactly why and what the differences are and how you can absolutely be an advertiser, a marketer, a copywriter, and do so very ethically and actually from a very heart-centered and service-centered place. So if this is your concern, absolutely stick with us here because we're going to dig in right now.
And you're very not alone. Is very not alone is what I want to also add, because this comes up a lot for a lot of people of not just, I think the best place to start is reminding us what copywriting is, because even sometimes I forget, like when you go back to this simple definition of what it is, you are connecting someone who has a certain challenge or a need with the right solution to that need. And so, yes, those needs can be very small. I think the example I like to use is energy bars or protein bars. I haven't found one that I like. So if anyone has recommendations, I feel like I am maybe swayed in the right direction or wrong direction by copy on energy bars. But like if I could find the energy bar where people are like, yeah, you know what, this is going to taste like Play-Doh, but here's why it's going to help you, maybe that would be the right one for me. Or if it actually tasted good.
Well, and I'll give you an even sillier example.
Ooh,
It was like maybe a year or two ago, I got in this kick where I was being advertised magnetic eyelashes. And I was like, oh, I know, laugh at me. Go ahead.
No,
Laugh
is that a
at me.
thing? How does it work?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so intrigued.
When you're on camera as much
Yes.
as I am, and when you have to do, a full face of makeup, and I thought, oh, that'll be maybe I don't have to do the full.
Sure.
Anyway, my thinking was this could be great. And the way
Yeah.
that it works is I'll do this very quickly, but they're full sets of lashes and they have magnets on them. And then what the eyeliner that you use, or instead of using glue, it's a magnetic thing. So it's much easier to put on and take off. And yeah, exactly. And I think I didn't end up going down that road, but it's such a silly little desire. But it was a genuine desire.
Yeah.
I started seeing this out there and I wanted to know, and then I started seeing a bunch, and then I wanted to know which was the best one and what was the best one for my particular needs and wants and usage. And no, it wouldn't have changed my life for someone to have sold me. And I think I did buy a pair. It wouldn't have changed my life for someone to have sold, but it was what I wanted. Yeah. And yes, there are big desires. I think
there's much bigger, more important things.
Certainly. If someone is looking to adopt a child and they're looking to work with a reputable adoption agency that maybe shares their values or whatever, something like that, that is potentially life-changing. There's a whole gamut of desires and wants and needs. And certainly, quite frankly, it's not our job to judge whether someone's wants or needs are valid.
It's true. I shouldn't judge my own that it was silly.
Yeah,
you know what?
great point. Yeah.
And neither,
if you want it, you want it, or need it, or
if I need
whatever.
to solve some pain point. Yeah. And as you're talking too, I mean, how often are we searching, the internet to find the perfect need to our solution? We're just like scrolling for hours and hours, and it's like, oh no, this is not the right thing. I'm looking for something silly. Again, it's not silly. I
know. Stop judging yourself.
I know.
Kid.
Gosh. For the bathroom, like an organizational thing. And I'm like, no, I don't want it to be wood. I want it to be, this other material, and what size, and this and that and the other thing. And it's just, I'm not finding the right thing. How much nicer would it be if I could get my time back, even if the right product or service or whatever for my need was served up to me? And so I think when we think about it like that, there's so much potential for copywriting to help on that scale of small to big.
And even just when we think in terms of helping our clients, and again, our clients they can be a one-person business, they can be
Mhm.
a multi-billion dollar business, and they're in multi-billion dollar businesses that do good things in the world. Not
Yeah.
all of them, certainly, but there are some that do good things. So when we write effectively for our clients, we help the clients bring that solution to the want or the need to their customer, and we help that customer get the solution to their want. I think even just if it helps thinking this way, if you have a solopreneur client who has created, let's just say they created a course, right? They've created a course that they are trying to change people's lives with, and they're trying to make a big difference, but they don't know how to communicate it effectively. Because don't forget that just because this is a natural talent that we have, and then of course it's a skill that we develop, don't forget that just because we can do it, that doesn't mean that everybody else can. In fact,
Mhm.
most people can't. If this small business owner, solopreneur, whatever, I know we said courses, but it could be a restaurant, it could be a yoga studio, it could be a dog walk, it could be anybody. If they can't communicate why someone should purchase their product or use their service, or say, they won't be in business for long, because fundamentally messaging is the most important part of a business. And I say this to my business clients as well, or business students, I should say, as well. If they can't communicate what makes their product or service different and beneficial and especially useful and the right choice, nobody's going to buy it. And that business is going to, well, go out of business. It's not going to exist for long. So
Mhm.
this fundamental communication element that we provide is essential for both sides, for both the business and for the consumer.
Yeah. I think sometimes we like to think of like, if they build it, they will come. The right people will just come. But you have to tell people what you're offering in order for them to find it. And if you believe in what your client is selling, and I think that's one of the things to look for. You don't have to work with every client. There's so many clients out there. But if you believe in the mission or in the product or the service or the offering that your client has, and you think it has the potential again to transform someone's life, and even if you're like, well, transform, that feels like a big word. Again, even if it's just to help them get what they need, then why not market it? Everyone wins.
Yeah.
Everyone can win when
Yeah.
it's done right.
Yeah, and I think people worry about being a pushy marketer or a pushy salesperson
Mhm.
or whatever, but fundamentally, pushiness doesn't work. We all can
Mhm.
tell when we're being pushed and when we're being forced, and if we don't like it, we'll walk away. We won't interact with it.
Yeah.
I think the idea of like, we're gonna manipulate you. The average consumer is savvier now than ever before. And I will say the average consumer has a better view of all of the things that they could possibly purchase.
Mhm.
And that's part of social media. That's part of just media as a whole. And it used to be in the 50s that if your blender broke, you would save up for a blender, or you'd ask for a blender for Christmas. And now it's like, blender's broken, or you'd get someone to repair the blender. Now it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to get a new blender. That is the way it is. That's the progress of humanity. That's not something we're going to change. But if people have that want or that need, like we were saying earlier, who are we to judge whether or not that's valid? I think the average consumer is actually better educated now than ever
Mhm.
before, and also better aware of the way that they're being sold to. I mean, how
Mhm.
many of us will joke about like, oh, I want this, I should speak it into my phone so it shows up in my Instagram news feed, and we joke about that. But also, I say that sometimes, and I want it to
I
show up in
wanted
my
to
news
show. Yeah,
feed.
genuinely do. Yeah.
Yes, because I don't want to have to look for it. So I think
Mhm.
that the average consumer is also savvier. The way that the world works, the more information that's out there, the more that everyone is aware of their options, and also their ability to walk away if it's not something that they want to interact with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I want to read some of the responses. This came up in the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy, our student only Facebook group. This was a little bit ago, but people had some really great responses. So I do not want to take credit for these,
Do you
but
want
I
to read
did want
a
to.
little part of the beginning, the
Oh, yes. So
question,
the
the original
original
question?
question. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So the original person, I won't use their name for privacy's sake. This person's very early stages of their copywriting journey and has a mental block. that's preventing them from getting fully excited about making this career change. And again, I'm using this because we're bringing this up because a lot of us have this, whether it's a big concern for us in copywriting or it's just that little nagging voice. So this person's not alone is all that's to say. I have a certain amount of bias, prejudice even, against the advertising world. My layperson's opinion of advertising is that it largely serves to manipulate people into buying things, a necessary part of consumer culture, but one that doesn't actually do good in the world. So they're kind of questioning, do I really want to pursue this path and a career in it? And they know it's idealistic and accurate perspective, which I wouldn't say it's idealistic. I think it's an idealistic perspective with just a little redirection is needed in terms of you can be that idealist of wanting to do good in the world and be in this career. So, as we've kind of touched on already, how can working as a copywriter be a force for good in the world? And so people weighed in with so many good answers again. So obviously, I'm going to reiterate, you do not have to manipulate, but this is what this student said. You can be firm in your ethical practices. For example, I always guide clients toward benefit marketing over focusing on more on pain points. So keeping things in the positive of how it can help consumers versus if you don't do this, you're going to die tomorrow. That's obviously a drastic example, but I think something to think about as your
it is something to think about, but what I do want to point out is I think that actually even the concept of pain point marketing has gotten a bad rap, because here's the thing is that sometimes it is beneficial, it is helpful to someone to point out to them the discomfort that they're experiencing it, because
like this episode.
but yes.
Well, yeah.
But we view life through like a little keyhole, or we get with blinders on. And sometimes in order to make a decision, we're not considering our full experience. And it can be helpful to a consumer to be encouraged to take a moment and go, yeah, this is what I want. Oh, but you know what? Oh, I am experiencing this. And this is a problem. And this is something that I want solved. Yeah, I don't want that. I do want some help with this. So I think the idea of, I think it's really easy to say that pain point marketing is especially manipulative. And like you said, Kate, the example that we go to in our minds is you're gonna die if this doesn't happen, or you're something terrible is gonna happen to your kids. But that's really
There's
not
more
what it's
nuance
about.
to it,
When it's
yeah.
I mean, first of all, it doesn't even make sense. It would never work. What it is just, it's showing people the positive of where they can go, but also the negative of what they may be experiencing now. In fact, I think that in a lot of ways, you'd be doing a disservice if you aren't asking people to take a moment and really evaluate where you are in your life at this moment. Because quite frankly, if you brought up pain points and they didn't have those pain points, great, then they're in the wrong place. It's in a lot of ways, doing the pain point marketing can be especially beneficial as well. But there's nothing inherently bad about reminding people that things aren't great for them in that moment, because sometimes we need to be reminded of that in order to make a decision. And by the way, just because you use pain point marketing doesn't mean your decision is going to be yes. It might remind them of like, oh yeah, I do have this issue. This is something I need to deal with. I'm not going to buy this, but I do want to think about this.
Yeah.
So I think that we stay away from pain point marketing because we want to be nice people, and we don't want to make people feel bad. But you know what? Sometimes we need to be reminded that where we are could be better. Our current experience could be better.
Or it's relatable that we're not alone in it. And I think and I joked when I said, this episode, because I do think for some people, it might be you didn't even realize that there was this nagging feeling about copywriting, and it's, oh yeah, this is it. This pinpoints my pain point, which is that I'm unsure that I can do this in a way that's ethical, aligns with my values, that I feel good about. And so hopefully by listening to it, you get a sense of how you can do that. Sometimes we have things that come up for us that we haven't quite identified where they're coming from. And I think the right messaging to that point of pointing out a pain of like, oh yeah, that is what I have. And oh, I didn't know there was a solution for it. Oh, thank goodness. What a relief that I can now go, try that or find, to your point, another, maybe not that product or service, but another one.
Well, and I mean, to get a little meta, when we point out and say, look, you have always been a good writer, but you were probably told that you could never make any money as a writer. And so you've thought that you could never actually do this as a career. guess what? That's a pain point.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that insight is necessary and helps remind people of dreams that they
Mm-hmm.
had forgotten about, that they had set aside. So I understand the impulse and the fear. I mean, it's got the word pain in it. I
Mm-hmm.
completely
I
understand
feel
that.
like the better word is maybe threat marketing. Like, like,
I
like that's,
mean,
I feel like when people think about though, like that, oh,
oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm
Yeah.
being, I'm being, feeling threatened into having to make a decision that I
Yeah.
don't
Or
actually want to make, or I'm
I'm
feeling
being mean, or
pressured.
I'm poking
Yeah.
at them. But I think it's reminding them of what they want, but it's also reminding them of what they don't want. And I think
Yeah.
that is quite
It's a
frankly,
powerful
it's
tactic.
very effective, but it also does a service to the person who's reading that
Mhm.
copy. Anyway, so I will let you continue before
No,
it
I'm
takes a
glad
huge
no, I'm
digression.
glad
Yeah.
we did. But the rest of their answer too was focus your pitching and your outreach on companies that you really do believe make a difference in the world, and use your writing talents for good. I will say with that one, and I always caution people to not make assumptions, not just me, us. We caution
Mhm.
people not to make
Mhm.
assumptions, because there are a lot of companies out there that maybe on the surface, whatever product service thing that they're offering isn't overtly changing the world. It's not like they're selling a green product that is reusable, reducible, recyclable, but maybe it's a bank, and they have a huge corporate giving arm of their bank that
Mhm.
does great work. So digging a little deeper to know what are companies
Yeah.
doing beyond what the immediate offer, service, et cetera is.
Yeah, and that is absolutely important. I would say though, in addition to that, it almost seems like an argument is it has to be a company that is overtly doing,
Mm-mm.
like it seems to be arguing, not it seems to, I'm not trying to put words in the student's mouth, so apologies. Going further down this
Mm-mm.
road, this ethos would seem to indicate though that like the magnetic eyelash companies weren't worth a copywriter's help because they weren't doing
Mhm.
something good in the world. And I just want to get back to that idea
Mhm.
of like, if a company is
What is
providing
good? Yeah.
something that people want, why are we making a judgment about that? And again, you get to choose what kind of company
Exactly.
that you
Yep.
want to work with. Absolutely. But I would just say that just because they don't have a charitable giving arm, or they're not, feeding children somewhere, your average yoga studio is probably not doesn't have a charitable giving arm. They're probably not feeding, but they still
Still providing a big
deserve
service.
to
Yeah.
be in business.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they still, and for that matter, a bigger company, a software company may not be, but they still,
And I
there are
would say
people who need the
the
software.
service.
And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, I just
I'm
would
going to
be
take us
really
down another rabbit
careful.
hole too, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, because the yoga comment made me think of a yoga studio in a town I used to live in. They had a pot of money that people could donate to, because they said, a gold star spouse, which in the military community means a spouse who lost their husband, wife, significant other to combat or otherwise in the
Mhm.
military. So a spouse who's otherwise just on their own now, that those members of the community will never pay for a yoga class. So they can go to the yoga
Mhm.
class at any point and take
Mhm.
a class without paying. And I think the one thing too I want to think about is that, like, do they advertise that loudly all the time? No, not necessarily. And I do think there's something to some of the things that the good that companies do in the world. There is always that perception, the part of the world that's going to be like, well, you're just using that good thing that you do to advertise your company and make more money.
Mhm.
And so I would say too, for people, for copywriters, just the companies that you're working for or looking to work for, maybe they're doing a lot that isn't necessarily going to come up in the work that you do, but makes you feel good about working with that business.
Mhm. That just made me think of a corporation I used to work for, and I don't think I mean, they did I'm sure they did some degree of charitable giving. Most corporations do, but
Yeah.
it wasn't overt. But they had a policy that if you were 20 hours as a contractor, they would provide health insurance for you.
Hmm.
Which was super cool because I think at the time that I was
Mhm.
part-time with them, I was like, great, I
That's
will take this health.
huge.
And they paid for health
Yeah.
insurance for you, which is awesome. But there's no way that you would have known this
Mhm.
if you were outside of the company
Right.
in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So companies can be doing
Tons of great things.
great things
Yeah.
without you knowing about it. So I just think, I don't want to talk around this too far, but I think all of us need to be really careful about making a value judgment
Yeah.
about, and, I'm not, certainly be discerning about the clients that you work for. Absolutely. Be discerning, and you
Yeah.
have the right to choose which clients you work for at any and all times. But at the same time too, just be open-minded, maybe. It's not on us to make a value judgment about a consumer's desire for something. Like if a consumer
Yeah.
wants, what's the example I come back to? Like the residential tractors. If a consumer wants a residential tractor, they want a residential tractor. So help that company put together copy that connects the person who wants that residential tractor with the company that's got the best residential tractor
Yeah.
for them.
I feel like this aligns with what another student wrote in and said, I would also say, don't take ownership for what isn't yours. Some of us may have more choice privilege, but we all make our own decisions about what we want to spend our money on, wisely or unwisely. So it's one thing if a company is being misleading, but it's more that if you feel that you're selling to people something they don't need or can't afford, is that really up to you or any of us? Something that might seem frivolous to me might have real value to someone else. I don't feel like it's my place to judge, and I'm clearly not the right person to sell that product. If it doesn't sit right with you, find a company that feels like a better fit. And I think that just
That's
brings up some other things to just take into consideration of what's important to me versus what's important to you. And similarly, another person said, I'm doing this copywriting because I want to help people on the planet. I want to connect people with companies and groups that are doing good in the world, that are making beautiful objects or experiences possible, that have ethical practices. And I get to write as persuasively as I can to support and connect people to those things. And so that just, when she said beautiful objects, it just makes me think of like art or something else that to one person might not feel like it has an impact, but for someone else could be really moving and really, really beneficial in so many ways. And one of the last ones I'll share is someone who said, the best copywriting helps match up the company with their ideal client. I've written for midwives, law firms, eye doctors. There's nothing inherently wrong with helping those clients connect with people who want their services. In the end, the company and the future customers get what they're looking for, and the customer has more information about someone they may want to hire. And then on the other side of it, maybe that you're giving customers information of someone they don't want to work with. You're also helping people make a choice in a different direction. So to Nikki's point, maybe you see something and you say, oh, this is something I need, but I'm going to look to someone else or something that's more aligned with what I need even further. Just because someone doesn't move forward also doesn't mean you might not have helped them in some way or another get information that they needed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I really love the place that this comes from, right?
Yeah.
I think it's so intelligent, but also so
Intentional
caring,
too.
intentional to make sure that we are doing the best that we can in the world, and that the time that we're spending at our career is also bringing the best into the world that we can. So I love where this question comes from. And I love too that the student posted it looking for and open to a genuine conversation. I think that is so, so beautiful.
It was a very self-aware question.
Yes.
Very, very
And I
self-aware.
think students in CCA can attest to the fact that the Facebook group is such a wonderful place and a supportive place. And a
clearly
place
by these comments.
Yeah,
Thank you to the people that responded to this, because I think you all so beautifully captured various reasons of why you're doing it. And I think this question can be answered in many different ways, but
yeah, exactly. What I really would love to just circle back with is that it's the intention that you bring into it that makes your job worthwhile. It's the reason that you do it. And it's certainly the companies that you do it for will affect it. And again, if you don't want to work for a company, don't work for a company. You don't need to. There are so many more clients than you will ever in 1,000 lifetimes need.
And nonprofits.
And nonprofits as well. Yeah.
Not that all nonprofits are good. I should add that too. Not that all, so.
That's true. Or, or effective, but what is good, right? Then we're getting into that value judgment again.
Yes, true.
Exactly. It's really is all about the service and the intention as we go into working with every client. And quite frankly, too, as we go into every day and every project that we work on. So kudos to the student, kudos to all the other students who are thinking about it, and certainly kudos to you who are listening and watching and now thinking about it as well. Let's all be as intentional as possible in our careers and in our day-to-day tasks, and do our best to make the world a better place. So with that, we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, Sign up for a free video training right here.